What's going on, guys? SamuxPlays here, and today I'm going to be just talking about a couple characters that you should be using with the new Axiom planes. Now, disclaimer, you can make pretty much any Descendant work in the new content. I have heard that people are struggling and saying it's too hard. I do want to remind people that Axiom is supposed to be like the very end game content. You are supposed to have like a fully Catalyst, fully energy activated Descendant with good external components and weapons before you enter this area. So if you are a newcomer or you are struggling, I highly recommend that you build your Descendant first before trying to progress in this content. Now, that being said, you don't have to be completely min-maxed. You don't have to have like perfect rolls on your weapons. You don't have to have a tier 5 reactor. You don't have to have the perfect rolls on your external components, although you should at this point. See, like right here I have purples, but this is now very easily obtainable since the changes. So you want to have cores in your externals to give you more HP and defense and survivability, and you also want to be using the correct Descendants. As I said, of course, you could use some other ones that aren't as meta. However, I'm going to go ahead and recommend a few choices. So the first one I'm going to recommend is Serena. Obviously, this character has been meta for a long time now since her release, and she handles content in Axiom extremely comfortably. This is because she is basically 3 roles in one character. She's a tank, healer, and DPS. If you ran Void Erosion Purge last season, you'll probably notice the build isn't changed. This is just going to be the quality of life build. You have pretty much everything here. You have cooldown reduction, range, duration, skill extension, multi-talented for some cooldown, conservation for letting you fly in the air more, and MP collector so you never run out of mana. This is just overall an extremely comfy build, and it's going to get you through Axiom no problem. Keep in mind, you don't have to have a trigger module. If you don't have this equipped yet, that's totally fine. I did all the content without a trigger module equipped. However, I've just been testing some stuff out and threw this in there for fun, but it is not mandatory. So with the build, you can kind of flex it up a little bit. I'm using the same strat that we used last season, which is Malevolent. This is just because I am running Defense Neutralization, which is a mutant cell, which is unlocked through Sigma Sector, but basically this pairs very well with my 4 ability. I am basically going to be firing on the enemies during my 4, and it is going to armor strip all of them. With the Malevolent bounces, it works really well. I highly recommend if you don't have this. It is a game changer. It's going to up your DPS substantially, and it works well with any AoE weapon. So yeah, 10 out of 10, highly recommend. Again, this isn't mandatory. It is just going to boost your damage. You can still do the content if you do not have this, but it will help, of course. And then I'm also using RK Reload right here. This pairs well with R3. It's just going to give you some skill critical hit rate. So this is just going to be a passive buff while we are fighting stuff. It does have a 30-second cooldown, but it lasts 15, so you'll get 15 seconds of uptime with it. This is going to be the RK tree that I'm using, and as I said, you don't have to have a perfectly rolled reactor. I'm just using a tier 2 reactor, and for my external components, you do want to have those max HP and defense cores in there. As I said, it doesn't have to be perfect. However, you do at least want to throw something in there with MP recovery out of combat and max HP, and MP recovery in combat with max MP. I'm using the Volcanic to give me some extra fire skill power, and then I'm using the Plague 2-piece for some extra damage as well. Keep in mind, you can use her 4-piece Ascending if you want to add a little bit more quality of life to the build. It'll reduce your skill cost and give you supplies, so that's completely up to you. I went for the more greedy damage setup. However, you can kind of use whatever you want. It's not that big of a deal. For the inversion reinforcement, I'm running RK Circulation Tactic. This is going to just give us some quality of life along with multi-talented on our 4 ability. This is just to keep uptime on our ultimate. Toxic focus rounds, and I'm also testing out firearm control mechanism. You can kind of play around with this. I would say the only mandatory one would be this one because it provides so much cooldown, so I'd highly recommend using this. However, you can kind of just slot in whatever is best, just play around with it. So let's talk about what makes Serena so comfortable to play. She does lack in AoE damage compared to something like Bunny or Ines. However, she does make up for it with her single target damage. You can basically nuke bosses in like 5 seconds. So while Ines or Bunny or Freyna is going to clear these little mobs faster, you are going to essentially be faster than them, because while those characters are really good at clearing the little mobs, they struggle with single target damage with the bosses. Now, I'm not saying you can't make it work. I have done a lot of runs with Ines and Bunny. I've been testing out all the Descendants. And of course, Serena does feel the most just easy version. She just nukes pretty much everything. Along with her 1, she's just never going to take damage. Since your 1 is a hill and your 4 is an AoE, you're pretty much never going to have to be at fear of dying. And as I said, with the defense neutralization mutant cell, so if you see right here, once I click, see that little debuff right here, it spreads. So now all of them are debuffed, and they just get obliterated, right? And you can tell you have the debuff on them by this icon right here. So I'll fire again, and then whatever doesn't die will get debuffed. And as I said, she just nukes the bosses, no problem. This is what makes her really good. You can press your 1 or shoot them to get the defense neutralization going, and then you can just absolutely obliterate them. Like so. That's what I'm saying. She might struggle, or not even struggle. She might not be as fast as something like the other AoE farmers in the game, but she makes up for it with her single target damage. So she's just overall going to be an amazing pick. If you're looking for something just easy and comfortable, go with Serena. The next character we're going to talk about is going to be Ines. She is going to pretty much outperform anyone in terms of just raw speed. She gets a special resource from her abilities, and since there is so many mobs that spawn in Axiom, she is just going to have pretty much full energy, I guess, if you want to call it, pretty much all the time. Now, where Ines struggles is her single target damage. I've been trying to find a way around this. What I have been doing is using her 3 ability. And for Ines, you're going to want to be using the Secret Garden, because this is just going to buff our skill power. This is going to be my reactor. I just have a tech skill cooldown, and I'm using a 2-piece Ascending and 2-piece Plague. I don't even have cores in this. That's my bad. I need to do that. For Ines, this is what I have been using. I specifically try to go for this one first because it reads on hitting an enemy with a skill, which we are going to be doing permanently. It's going to give us Area Burst Inducer, which is incoming damage modifier plus 13%. For the Secret Garden, I don't really have like damage rolls, as we're not going to be using it to do damage that much. We're just going to be using it for a stat stick and some quality of life. I threw in sprint speed just so I could hit speed cap with like other characters, like when I'm using it with Freyna and stuff like that. So you can kind of just slot in whatever you want here. These are going to be my rolls, and then this is just going to be the build. I haven't even unlocked the trigger module on her yet, so yeah, as I said, you don't have to interact with the new systems to clear the content. You just have to be catalyzed and energy activated. And what makes Ines just so incredibly good in Axiom is, since there's so many enemies, she can basically just wipe the entire map. So you just run around spamming your 1, and then once you have full energy, you just keep spamming your abilities over and over. Now the hard part is going to be these guys right here. This is why I said that while Serena does really well with single target, spellcaster descendants that don't have a good weapon kind of struggle a little bit. Like, not even a good weapon, but you know, you're not getting insane damage numbers with your weapon like on the Secret Garden. You're basically using your skills, but she makes up for it in just clear time. You just wipe everything. And with the inversion reinforcement we talked about earlier, giving you cooldown, she just feels really good to play in the new content. She just pretty much obliterates everything. And this is where she kind of falls short, is going to be the bossing. However, I've been trying to get around that using her 3 ability. So this guy like perma-stun locks, so I need to wait. But if you see here, her 3 does a lot of damage. Right? I just did pretty much half his HP in 1 skill attack. The only hard part is, again, if they touch you, it's going to cancel your animation. So it can... You kind of do have to like be a little bit smart about when you use it, because this guy specifically attacks a lot, so I want to wait for him to do his like wind up thing here, and then that's when I want to go in, right? I actually missed. I only nicked him there, so but you're just going to keep working him down. It's not like Serena where you can just kill him in 2 seconds, but if you get a good angle like so, it does a lot of damage, right? So it's not too bad, as you saw there. You just kind of have to wait for your openings and then pop your 3, and you get a good view while you're doing it, right? So it's a win-win. In terms of arcade tuning, I have been pretty lazy with Ines. I could path up here and put in mutant cells, however I just haven't yet. So if you wanted to, you could path down this way and put in defense neutralization here, just because it's such an OP mutant cell. However, I'm being lazy and I just have the skill power and skill cooldown ones as you see here. However, you can kind of just flex it however you want. It might be better to slot in the defense neutralization just because there's like not that many sources of armor shred in this game. So it's completely up to you. As always, play around with it. Do a little bit of your own research. Don't just, you know, listen to what all, you know, every content creator says. Try and have fun with it. Play around with it a little bit. I'm just lazy, so this is what I'm running. I would not say that this is the optimal arcade tree, but it's good enough for me and what I want to do with it. I'll probably end up pathing down here or going this way and seeing what I want to throw in there, but for now, this is good. I can do all content. For the build, as I said, you really only need Secret Garden to stack your buffs, but for fun, I guess I'll show you the build. I just have Brisk Walk on here just like for fun when I was trying to test out speed on Freyna, so you can ignore this if you don't want this. You're kind of not getting value off of it. But again, as I said, nothing here has to be like completely min-maxed. You do have the freedom to play around with it and kind of just build it how you want, but I would definitely keep all of these except Brisk Walk. You can kind of take this out and put in another damage mod if you want to, but again, most of the time you're not really using Secret Garden to shoot, you're just using it as kind of like a stat stick. For the third character, we are going to have none other than Freyna. Now, she is not going to be as efficient as something like Ines, because I feel like the resistances from the eye on her toxin do hurt her quite a bit more than it does for Ines. Forgot to switch my stuff there, but yeah, she's still really good. You're basically going to be using the same setup. You're just going to run Secret Garden to buffer damage. You're just going to put on whatever reactor you have. You can go for more damage if you roll like Toxic or Tech Reactor. I just don't really have a good one. Now that we can target farm, I need to go farm one. But again, you can do all the content without a min-max set. For the 4-piece, I'm just going to be using the Slayer. It does up our skill cost, but we get a lot of damage in return with the skill power, so it's worth it in my opinion. You do lose some survivability because Slayer just has really bad main stats on it. You could go the Freyna shield build, which would probably work pretty well, but I just run the max HP and defense cores. I do want to say for this one specifically, when you're running the Secret Garden, you do want to switch to this page right here. It is the same exact build as I was using with everybody else. The only difference is I took out Brisk Walk and I put in SPS. The reason you do this is because her fourth ability does scale up with SPS. So the longer you hold it, the faster the fire rate, which works really well with Freyna. It doesn't work with other Descendants, it just works with her 4. So you do want to make sure to have it on because it is a big damage DPS increase. Again, you don't have to be min-max with your arcade tuning. I need to level up literally one more time so I can get the skill cooldown. It's basically the same one I was using with Ines, but I would probably path up here since she has a Malachite slot, and then I would most likely throw in like defense neutralization here and then something else in here, right? I've kind of been lacking on the mutant cells just because I got so tired of Sigma Sector, but if you want to get like more damage, you can go up here, put in defense neutralization, and it'll up your damage pretty well, I would imagine. Playstyle is just going to be similar to Ines. You're basically just going to throw poison everywhere, spam your abilities, and wait for everything to die. Do not be scared to use your ultimate on the little guys, but basically the idea is you're just going to spread your poison everywhere, and you do want to mix in some shots while you are like poisoning everything. So if you wanted to take out, like as we talked about earlier, the sprint cores and Secret Garden, you could put some more damage on it if you wanted to. It's completely up to you. There's no like one way to play this game. And you're just gonna work the bosses down with your ultimate. As you can see, she does struggle with single target. That is kind of like her main issue. However, you'll just basically be, you know, just work them down, pop your ultimate when you have it, and it'll be a big DPS increase. You know, it's not gonna be as fast, but it works. Just make sure you're always like hopping around and moving. I mean, she doesn't have an issue with like the smaller mobs. And as I said, if you actually fully invest into her and put in like some mutant cells, a trigger module, she'll probably just obliterate everything. She's just very brain off, like, you know, jump around, kill stuff, shoot stuff. Basically everything is just gonna explode. You just completely cover your screen. If you want to, you can take off contagion. It's not really needed since they're also clumped up, but it's completely up to you. Alright, so again, all the spellcasters are good at clearing mobs, but where they struggle is the bosses. But as you can see, since we have SPS on our secret garden, we are able to do a good bit of damage to the boss. Ideally, you just want to run around and wait for your ultimate to come back up, but you can mix in some, like, you know, shots while you're waiting. Oh, I got hit there. Yeah, you are a lot squishier with this build since we are running the Slayer set. Just make sure you roll when he does that slam attack. And once you have your ulti back up, you are just going to rinse and repeat. We popped his armor there, that's good, so he should take more damage now. And he should just get shredded here now that he has no armor with our ultimate, and there you go. So yeah, it kind of depends on how built you are, what mission you're doing, etc, etc. But overall, I'd say she's still a really good pick. I'd say she's up there with Bunny. I would say she's a little better than Bunny because Bunny really struggles with the bosses in this area. She nukes everything else, but the bosses do take a little bit longer. The reason Freyna is good is because her 4 does quite a bit of damage to the bosses once you get their armor off, and it would only get better once you have defense neutralization to decrease their resistances. So overall, I'd say she's an extremely strong pick. But yeah, you can also use Bunny as well. That's something I've been trying to test a little bit more to see how I could just up my single target damage with her. But I would probably just have to use like a weapon that's like really like cored out, like the last dagger or something like that with like full cores in it to kind of make up for her DPS loss. But yeah, guys, at the end of the day, you can pretty much use whoever you want. You can kind of just try to find solutions to these problems, like, you know, oh, if you have a spellcaster that can wipe all the AoE mobs but they're not able to kill the bosses, you could try to throw on like a really kitted out like a side weapon, so that way you can clear everything with, say, like the secret garden, and then you can switch to the bosses. I don't have this cord, but just for example, you could switch, you know, to whatever weapon you have really built up, like, you know, my last dagger, and then you could fight the bosses with that, right? So there's no like wrong answer here, but these are the 3 that I've pretty much been enjoying the most with the new content. But there's no wrong answer. I've pretty much tried everyone aside from like Sharon, just because I feel like she's not that great with the new content. However, my opinion on that is not, I wouldn't take that to heart because I do not have her full build. It's just based on some other stuff that I've seen. So the content can really be done by anybody. Play who you like, play who you're having fun with. You don't have to pick like the top 3 best characters if you don't want to. It's just if you're trying to be like the fastest at farming the new area and you want to just like min-max your time, those are the 3 descendants I would recommend: Serena, Ines, and Freyna. You could slot out Freyna for something like Viessa or Bunny if you want to. All of them are really good at farming. Viessa is really good at freezing, so she's a lot safer. You would probably just have to throw in like a really good weapon in your offhand, that way you can handle the bosses because they do struggle with single target. And once you take away the like secret garden, you know, you're dropping your skill power quite a bit, but if you have a good weapon, it kind of makes up for it if you are able to just kind of run over the bosses, right? Anyways, thank you guys for watching. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments. How are you liking the new content? I'll be doing a full season 3 review, kind of going over my thoughts on everything and all that good stuff. I'll be releasing that in a future video. But if you guys have any questions, I'd be happy to help. Right now, I'm just kind of experimenting with all the new toys we have with Season 3. I also need to still go over like all the weapons that got buffed. Like, is Fallen Hope actually good now? I don't know because I don't have it full built, but that is something I'm working on. So yeah, there's a lot of new stuff for me to try, but I just wanted to show that it was pretty comfortable to play these 3 characters. Of course, if you are just trying to brain off, no risk at all, go Serena. As I said, there's just no way you're ever gonna have a hard time on this character. She is just 3 rolls in 1. But Ines and Freyna would be my second and third choice. But who knows, I might change my mind on that. I know I'm not changing my mind on Serena though. She is just incredibly powerful. She's my go-to if I'm trying to farm everything comfortably. So let me know if you have any questions. I'm SamuxPlays. I hope you guys have a good one. Peace.